I'm going to get on my soapbox, and don't worry, I have a spot right here for you. The officials have to be made full-time fucking employees that are held accountable by the league. This shit cannot continue. Like, it has been an issue for, it feels like, the last decade. There was the strike and nothing has ever gotten better. Like, the officials have no accountability. And to that end, the NFL is not accountable either, because they just say it's the officials. They don't have to go by anything. They just hand out a fine to somebody who may or may not have said something bad about the officials. And then they say, well, it's the officials that did it. But the officials don't fucking answer to anybody because they're outside entity. It doesn't make any sense. And it fucks games up. And it's become now a national story because of this.
Yeah,
so, that's all I got on that, bro. It's ridiculous.
The general feeling for me is that this year, while of course in every game there's calls that you agree with, disagree with, I would say my overall feeling of this season is that the calls have not been as egregious in past years. There's been past years where it's like, man, every week is getting absolutely fucked up by officiating. This is coming from a guy who watched Sam Darnold get fucking face masked in the end zone and have it become a fucking safety, and have the ref looking at it and turn away and be like, nah, I didn't see it. Like, there's been bad times this year, of course. There's bad times every year. But on the whole, I feel like it's been better this year, maybe. And maybe that's just, it's becoming more normalized and we're used to it. I don't know. But that's just my gut feeling. But what you said about needing full-time refs, we have been banging that drum since day one on this show, that this multi-billion-dollar agency who says refs are too expensive to pay full-time is full of shit. They need to have full-time employees. They need to have excess, more than needed for every game. So that way, actual reviews, like they need to institute real full-time officials with a arbitrary committee that actually reviews what these officials are doing, and then grade them almost like you grade MLB umpires. And if guys are performing so bad, they need to go to the back of the line, be retrained and or removed if it continues, because there's too much money involved, especially with sports gambling now. Like, that there's already so many millions and billions of dollars involved in this sport that they should not have any excuse to not pull in full-time officials. Dave Portnoy, which I posted his rant on the Facebook page, said it very well, that it makes no sense why these guys are going out and they're judges or attorneys or school teachers a majority of the week, and then 10 hours out of the week they are dedicated towards football and are expected to impact a game that has so much money on the line. It just seems like such an egregious failure of the game of football to not have full-time refs.
I absolutely agree. I could not agree more.
Either way,
I don't know if there's anywhere else we can go, but like, we just have to keep asking. We have to keep saying it, because at some point it's gonna come to a head, or something is going to happen, because there is so much money in the NFL and in sports gambling that somebody is going to do something stupid, and they're going to have to pull this in and get it under their thumb. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope they just decide to make the game better by hiring full-time officials. But at some point, this is going to come to a head. You have to imagine.
You would hope so. It is the officiating that is what everyone is talking about. You have pass interference, or not pass interference, roughing the passer calls, which by the slightest of rules, I suppose, could be counted. But I also feel like we're talking about, in a lot of ways, the sort of non-contextualized situations that are in politics, where you'll hear clips and snips and little pieces of statements from people, and then one political side will say, see, they talked about Nazis, and the full statement will be like, I hate Nazis, and shit like that. We're seeing a picture that gets floated around in a lot of Chiefs forums and circles of Texans defender Anderson Jr. with his face mask technically touching Patrick Mahomes' face mask, which by the slightest of the rule, head-to-head contact is a flag. What they don't show you is before that, where he hit him in the chest, and then the helmet moves up and Mahomes' head moves down, and that's why they contact. It wasn't the initial contact, but by the slightest of the rule, if there's contact at all between helmets and the official throws the flag, they're in the right. And then they'd have the NFL rules official, like the main dude, come out and issue a statement days after the game and say both these rulings were legit. It
No.
just it makes it look even worse on the NFL because again, they take no accountability for the fact that they are impacting the game in a way that is just feeding into a consistent narrative that quarterbacks get patty caked around too much, but that Patrick Mahomes in particular is fucking as our friend of the show, Aston likes to say, the biracial angel, when he starts getting looked at wrong, you're going to get a flag thrown against you. And then to also have what it seems to be a fairly clear and obvious flopping attempt by him.
Oh, dude, that was the worst flop. Dude, LeBron's done better at that.
It's and to have that called out on the broadcast as well by both the Fox News
That was
analyst
so funny, dude.
team. It's a really rough look. Patrick Mahomes has issued a statement saying, I think that it's a very tough job. They're doing it to the best of their ability, but I don't think that they're giving us calls. What else would you expect him to say? He's not going to say, yeah, they treat me fucking really well. He's not going to say that. Also, you can't be critical of the refs. If anything, as shown by the Joe Mixon tweet situation, you cannot at all talk against the shield. So it's a very bad look. It'll be interesting to see if there's any sort of sway going into this championship game because you know that the officials going into this AFC championship game have to have this thought in their mind. They have to think we have to call a really clean game and we can't just lean towards it looks like it could have been roughing the passer, so now we're going to throw the flag. Like they have to be very, very judicious with it.
Oh,
Because otherwise, like things are going to come to a fever pitch with this whole situation, and it's going to be tough for the NFL to recover. I don't know, like recovery is maybe the best term, but there has been so many talks about specifically roughing the passer penalties and having them be reviewable now. And I think that they probably should be at this point with how egregious some of these calls are. That I feel like is a given that is going to happen this offseason.
that's Pandora's box, though. You start reviewing penalties again, man, because we did that with pass interference because they screwed it up so bad. We might get it next year, but it's going to go away right afterward because then you're slowing the game down too much, and it's still judgment calls because most times they're not going to fucking change their mind anyways. They're going to say, nope, it was good.
They're supposed to rule
PI call.
Yeah, they're supposed to rule in favor, like if they have a 50-50 call, they have to go with what the 50-50 was on the field, the call on the field, right? So in a situation like this, where that specific play I'm talking about, where Anderson hits Mahomes in the chest, and then after helmets connect, and not even an egregious way. Like again, it's like this is like if I went up and patty caked the guy in the helmet, that seems almost more egregious than the kind of contact that happened between the helmets there.
Right.
They can fall back on the initial ruling that was on the field, and they can fall back on the fact that, hey, helmets technically did touch, even though there was like no aggressive hit. Like I'm sure Patrick Mahomes has banged his face mask harder on his own players getting out of the huddle. I could have made a joke there about banging it harder on Roger Goodell's dick, but we don't want to get fined. We don't want Joe Mixon to get fined anymore.
Yeah, I do. Joe Mixon did not say that, by the way.
TJ Houshmandzadeh. Yeah, a former Bengals wide receiver has been out of the league for I think a decade. TJ Houshmandzadeh. Yeah, it's interesting.